Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Sundelak. I'm the fire chief for Loveland Fire Rescue Authority. I just want to take a brief opportunity to express my extreme appreciation. Nobody wants to be the host agency for any event like this. But I can tell you very proudly as the fire chief of Lowland Fire Rescue Authority, when you do have an event like this, it's about cooperation and collaboration and the relationships that occur beforehand. And the folks that you're going to hear from, obviously the governor, but I also want to commend Sheriff Fayan and his entire team and all the folks that have responded with us on this fire. It has been truly a relationship building event, and what we've done on the front end is put us in a good spot to hopefully produce the best outcome that we possibly can. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sheriff Fayan to give you a briefing.
Greetings, my name is John Fayan. Last name is F as in Frank, E-Y-E-N. I am the Larimer County Sheriff. So as you know, for the past 48 hours, we've been fighting the Alexander Mountain Fire. And again, as the fire chief has expressed, we could not have done it without our regional partners. I'll keep this brief because you're not really here to hear me speak. But again, we have evacuated about 4,000 people on a mandatory evacuation and another 800 in voluntary evacuations. We are having the flame front is going up towards Palisade Mountain at the current time due to a wind shift, as you can see by the flag. Our fire crews and the fire crews from the incident management team have been working valiantly to protect those structures while not endangering any lives, and we're very, very thankful for that. And again, we can talk more about that in a little bit, but it's only due to the cooperation that we've had the success that we've had at this point. Even though we've had the acreage that we have burned, we've had no injuries, and as far as we know, we have not lost any structures at this point. So that is a huge benefit. But again, it's due to the cooperation with the Forest Service. My fellow sheriffs, Sheriff Curtis Johnson is here from Boulder County. He was one of my first contacts when this fire kicked off, and he was like, whatever you need, we'll be there for you. It's been the same way with the Forest Service, the state, and the governor's office. So without further ado, I think the person we're all here to hear from, I'd like to introduce our governor, Governor Polis. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Sheriff.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here at Loveland Fire Station 7. We were just at the Alexander Mountain Fire staging area just a few minutes up the road. We're here to update you on several of the fires that are occurring in Colorado right now. In this area, of course, we have the Alexander Mountain Fire and, of course, the Stone Canyon Fire just south of here that are two of the fires that are most threatening to residents and, of course, have caused the most, we hope, temporary dislocation with several thousand Coloradans under evacuation from these areas that are directly affected. We have just this morning, I issued the verbal order at around 7:30 in the morning to call out the Colorado National Guard to assist. That's the first fire-related activation since the Marshall fires for the Colorado National Guard. And to be clear, the Colorado National Guard are not the firefighters. They are the ones who are able to take additional support positions, road closures, logistics, then free up other first responders to more directly respond to the fire. So they are on point here in the next few hours. We're transitioning some of those traffic and logistics related functions to the Colorado National Guard, who stands ready. We also have an announcement from FEMA that 75% of the costs under the declared emergency are going to be covered by the federal government for Larimer and Boulder. And we look forward to continue to work with Congressman Agus and our senators to make sure that the federal government continues to step up and be our partner in this area. I would also add, as you know, that many of the lands affected on the Alexander Mountain Fire are U.S. Forest Service lands. You will hear from the U.S. Forest Service today, our federal partners who are also involved in this effort. Thank you, Loveland Fire Rescue Authority Chief Tim Sundelak. Thank you, Sheriff Fayan. We're also joined by Sheriff Curtis Johnson of Boulder County, Stan Hilke, our Department of Public Safety Director, U.S. Forest Service Regional Director, Troy Heathaker, and we also have Vaughn Jones, the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control Management Section Chief, and Congressman Joe Agus as well. We're taking an all-hands-on-deck approach to deal with the number of fires across the state of Colorado. I'm going to give a little rundown of the current fires that we are monitoring or helping with. I would add that fires start as the county responsibility. Several of the fires in western Colorado were made at the county level. But Alexander Mountain and Stone Canyon have both transferred authority at midnight to become state fires. And the Jefferson County Fire, we'll talk about that one as well, expects that shift will occur tonight or tomorrow to elevate that to a state fire as well. Regardless of the command structure and the state or county involvement, the state and the feds are stepping up to fight the fires however we can with all the resources we have. I want to highlight some of those resources. At the outbreak of each fire, we immediately deployed our aviation resources to support fire containment and response and management. And to be clear, that mission is to protect population centers and structures. These fire events will likely occur for weeks and even months. The goal of the firefighting community is to protect people's homes and businesses, especially some of the subdevelopments that might be threatened, and that is how the aviation resources are being deployed. We have deployed our Firehawk Type 1 helicopter and crew, equipped with a 1,000-gallon tank, up to 12 firefighters drawing from Horsetooth Reservoir, and repeating those missions as quickly as possible, going back and forth. We have 3 air tankers, 1 large air tanker that can deliver 3,000 gallons, 2 single engine air tankers that are 800 gallons of retardant. They are rapidly going back and forth to both Rocky Mountain Regional Airport in Jeffco, Fort Collins Loveland Airport, on as many missions as they can. We have both of the fires are fairly close, and the turnaround time is quick. I appreciate the work of the ground crew at both of those airports to turn those aircraft around, as well as the pilots and the firefighting professionals involved. We have 2 multi-mission aircrafts. We call them MMAs that are deployed to provide real-time intelligence and mapping. They're working to detect when and if the fires jump, where they jump to, where they're going. We're obviously in close touch with our weather and wind prediction and coordination partners, monitoring any changes in that. We also have 2 Type 2 medium helicopters that deploy 240-gallon loads and are also doing scooping from the reservoir. And those are coming down from Wyoming to assist us in this. They're already on the task. So these resources are nimble. They move where they are needed most. So, of course, the Alexander Mountain Fire, the fire near Lyons, the Jefferson County Fire, where they are needed to protect subdevelopments and communities, we, in real time, seek to deploy them to have the maximum impact on fire protection for the state. We've also deployed and are deploying critical ground resources, fire engines, firefighter crews, management support, technical assistance. Much of the major metropolitan fire departments in Denver, Aurora, and others we want to thank. Crews are working around the clock to defend the fires, and we're working closely with the local emergency managers in Jeffco, Boulder, Larimer County on recovery support and damage assessment as soon as that can occur. So going through the fires real quickly, we are here, of course, near the Alexander Mountain Fire, which is predominantly U.S. Forest Service land. That's Arapahoe-Roosevelt National Forest. Upwards of about 70% of the fire is U.S. Forest Service, the other 30% private land. Tomorrow, Fire Response Management is transferring to the National Complex Incident Management Team from the Southwest region. Highly skilled fire experts with the skills we need. We're closely supporting active fire containment, management, response with the aerial and ground resources that I mentioned from the state in conjunction with federal and local efforts. Just south of here, the Stone Mountain Fire, currently, and that Alexander Mountain Fire is currently just over 6,000 acres. Stone Mountain Fire, 1,320 acres, 0% containment. The Southwest Area Incident Management Team will assume management of the fire tomorrow alongside the Alexander Mountain Fire to be able to coordinate across both fires. Tragically, there has been 1 confirmed fatality that Boulder County Sheriff Johnson announced earlier today. We express our condolences for the loss. We also have reported that 5 homes have been destroyed. Again, we have 0 confirmed homes destroyed in the Alexander Mountain Fire. Again, as the post-event survey goes through, it's certainly possible that there were some, but there are 0 confirmed at this point. There are 5 confirmed homes destroyed under the Stone Mountain Fire, 1 fatality, and further damage assessment will continue when the crews can access those areas. The other one nearby on the Front Range, the Quarry Fire in Jefferson County, most recently noted to be about 150 acres. Chatfield Reservoir is closed. In addition to Horsetooth Reservoir closed, we're running our scoopers out of Chatfield for the Quarry Fire. including the aerial assets we have. And I want to thank the Department of Natural Resources for coordinating the efforts to receive the 2 Wyoming firefighting helicopters quickly. There's been no damage to homes or critical infrastructure reported yet from the quarry fire. We also want to report the Current Creek fire, 192 acres, 20% containment. And I want to add that in the last year, it's relatively rare that these fires are elevated to the state. In fact, there's only been 3 in the last 12-month period. We now added 3, so effectively doubling the number. We had the Spring Creek fire in Garfield County, Titan fire in Los Animas County last July, Lowline fire in Gunnison County last August, and then the Iron fire in Moffett County last October. Add to that these 3, and we stand ready when needed for any others that would need to fall under state-level fires. As the threat of the wildfire season continues, hot, dry weather is expected in the short-term forecast. I want to encourage my fellow Coloradans to be fire aware, and that means making sure that you're only doing campfires in designated areas with the proper precautions. Be careful around recreating with live ammunition in wild areas, around cigarette smoking and cigar smoking, and of course with off-road motor vehicles. Many fires that are human-caused originate from those sources. And they can catch on very quickly in this area. So I want to make sure that my fellow Coloradans are being smart about being fire-wise here in the days and months ahead to prevent additional fires from starting. We're continuing to update the public and be as transparent as we can with information we have passed along to members of the public. That's granular information. Is your home under evacuation or not? Is it recommended or mandatory? But also for the general public as well. And I want to thank the Division of Fire Prevention and Control, Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, State Patrol, who's here represented as well, Department of Transportation, Human Services, Department of Agriculture. Many of these areas are important agricultural areas. There's been animal evacuation plans that have been developed and are being implemented as well. Department of Public Health and Environment, and Colorado State University and the Forestry Service. One final note, obviously for those who live in and near the fire areas, please make sure you follow guidelines around evacuations. But for all Coloradans, the air quality that was already negatively impacted by the Oregon fires is taking a turn for the worse with regard to the heavy particulate pollution from these immediate fires in the vicinity. So please, particularly if you're sensitive, if you're asthmatic, have diminished lung capacity, if you're older, consider staying indoors more. You might want to suspend your exercise or outdoor hiking routine for a few days if you're particularly sensitive to air quality. Again, as a direct result of these fires, we want to make sure that Coloradans can remain healthy wherever they live. And again, there's fire-related pollution affecting the entire western United States as well. And we even prior to these fires, we had medium to hazardous air quality from the fires that were occurring in Oregon. So just something to be aware of for all my fellow Coloradans, particularly those who might be sensitive to poor air quality. We are thrilled to work closely with our federal partners. As I mentioned, FEMA has already agreed to take on 75% of the cost. There's a process that's usually in place for additional reimbursements. In addition, these fires directly affect U.S. Forest Service federal land. I want to turn it over to our representative of the area that's impacted by these 2 fires, and no stranger to disaster response. We've worked closely with him in the past. Congressman Joe Neguse.
No worries. Well, good afternoon. Good to see everyone. First and foremost, thank you to Governor Polis for his strong leadership, his decision to activate the National Guard, the resources that the state of Colorado, you'll hear from the Executive Director of the Department of Public Safety, is providing to local law enforcement and first responders across Boulder County and Larimer County in terms of aerial support. We're certainly grateful to the governor for his leadership in that regard and beyond. As the governor said, Colorado is no stranger to wildfires. Many of you were here with us, staged not that far from here 4 years ago, as we grappled with the Cameron Peak fire in Larimer County and the East Troublesome fire in Grand County. Of course, 3 years ago, the Marshall fire, which tore through multiple communities here on the Front Range, in which we still recover from. The fact that Colorado is no stranger to wildfires does not make the last 96 hours any less jarring for residents of our great state and for the folks in Larimer and Boulder County, with thousands of folks in particular in Larimer County evacuated and, of course, many worried about their homes, their businesses, and, of course, the need to protect human life at all costs. Our condolences go out to the individual who lost their life in Lyons in Boulder County. We're grateful, I will say, to law enforcement and to first responders for all that they are doing to protect our communities. And if there's a word of the day for me, it is collaboration. I think Coloradans can rest assured that they have the finest wildland firefighters, members of law enforcement, and public safety officials working to address these multiple challenges and collaborating together. Of course, that starts with the Larimer County Sheriff, with the Boulder County Sheriff, with the Chief of the Loveland Fire Department, and many other local agencies that ultimately came to the rescue of this community and others like it, and continue just 10, 12 miles away from here, put their lives on the line to try to protect our communities. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to go with the chief here in Loveland and with the sheriff for Larimer County up near Storm Mountain. And of the many jarring things that I saw, perhaps what was most jarring for me are the many different fire trucks from stations across this state, from Brush, from Vail, every corner of Colorado, ultimately stepping up, as they always do, to help their neighbors in need. We also have a number of local government officials. I know our county commissioners from Boulder County and Larimer County. I believe the mayor of Lyons, Holly Rogan, is here as well, who helped a tremendous amount yesterday as we evacuated the town of Lyons, or portions rather, in Boulder County, grappling with, of course, the Stone Canyon fire. As the governor said, this is going to be a journey. It may very well take weeks, many perhaps months, and we will follow the direction of law enforcement and our fire officials for further guidance on that front. What I would simply say is that I have no doubt Coloradans will continue to step up and help their neighbors in need, and the federal government will certainly do its part. We are working closely with FEMA, as the governor mentioned today. FEMA Region 8 announced the allocation of FMAG grants to help cover the costs of the Stone Canyon fire as well as the Alexander Mountain fire. Our hope is that we can get that percentage up to 100%, as we've done successfully in the past, and we're certainly going to be working towards that end. We're working closely with our federal partners, in particular the Forest Service, and we are grateful to them for their expertise and their response with respect to the Type 3 team that they assigned. And again, you'll hear more from a technical matter as to how the fires are developing and how the federal officials are helping us in that regard. Final thing I will just say, the firefighters that are putting themselves on the line right now, literally 10 miles from here, deserve our gratitude. We owe them a debt of gratitude that we can never repay. And I hope you'll certainly keep them in your thoughts and your prayers as they work really hard to protect our communities and the wonderful state that we're also blessed to call home. We will be here every step of the way to provide whatever assistance that we can. And I know I speak for both of our senators, Senator Bennett and Senator Hickenlooper, in that regard as well. I will now turn it over to, of course, someone who's no stranger to emergency management. You all have heard from him quite a bit these last, almost a decade now, but a former sheriff himself, the executive director of the Department of Public Safety, whose leadership has been instrumental, Stan Hilke.
Yes. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Stan Hilke, H-I-L-K-E-Y. I'm the Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Public Safety. I'll try to keep my remarks short. The governor did a great job at outlining, the resources that are from the Colorado Department of Public Safety. I want everybody to know the most important thing to me is that there has been no barriers in our way to help and deploy our resources, the state resources, to help the counties, to help the local fire departments, to help the U.S. Forest Service. When we talk about how that is supposed to work, this is an example of how it is supposed to work. And a lot of times we talk about when a fire is transferred from a county to the state and the way that transition occurs. I don't want you to get too hung up on that because even before a transfer to state responsibility, the department and its divisions are heavily engaged, and they were on the Alexander fire as well as the Stone Mountain fire, and even in the last 24 hours, the Quarry fire as well. We send and deploy our air assets, our ground assets, our overhead management teams to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to support the people that are actually in charge of the fire, and it's been a great pleasure to be able to support the counties and the fire departments in the local area here. One of my jobs is to sort of think about how it looks clear across the state. As we've been talking a lot about the Alexander fire and Stone Mountain and Quarry fire today, I want to remind everybody there are fires on the western slope that we've been engaged with as well. The Quarry Creek fire in Delta County has become a state responsibility fire. We've had one of our helicopters from Montrose heli-attack on that, or the Canyon City heli-attack, pardon me. And then our Montrose heli-attack has been on fires in San Miguel County, the Ed Joe Draw fire, and the fire that's also in Mesa Verde. So we pay attention to all of them. Each one of those fires has its own complexity analysis. This fire, as you can know, I mean, is a large fire, but some of the fires on the western slope may not be large, but they still have complexities, like the lack of resources. They don't have the pleasure of having, the size of the departments over here. And also we have to think about things in addition to people and homes, critical infrastructure like watersheds for the towns of Hotchkiss and Cedar Edge as an example. So in addition to not having any barriers to be able to deploy our service, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is making sure that we're not the barrier as well, so that the counties and the local fire departments and the U.S. Forest Service feel like they have a good partner, and I think we've met that goal. As we continue to do this work, I think it's important that what the governor said is that this will become a little bit of a marathon. It's been a sprint in the last 48 hours, but as this fire goes on, it will go on for weeks, maybe a matter of months, and we're in it for the long haul. And it's going to be something that we're going to paying a lot of attention to clear through the summer season. And excuse me, one of the things that is important to us is that we stay there and we make sure that we're doing well. We're going to be sharing resources between the fires today, as we started to do that yesterday between Alexander and Stone Mountain, and now we're going to be sharing resources with the Quarry fire as well. We do have 2 Scooper aircraft from Wyoming that have come down that are going to be working the Quarry fire today, along with the Firehawk will be moved down there. And as the governor mentioned, DNR has done a great job at helping us close Chatfield Reservoir to be able to have a unfettered access to be able to scoop water out of those, which will be a very short turnaround for those fires, and hopefully through that work we'll be able to get on top of the Quarry fire really fast. That's the goal anyway. In addition to that, we have the helicopter and heli-attack crews that are on the western slope, and they continue to work as well. The one final thing that I'll say today before I turn the mic over to other people is that I want to take you back to 2020 when we had 3 of the 5 states' largest fires ever in 2020. The state of Colorado benefited from other states sending them their people to help us here, and we couldn't have got through 2020 without that kind of help. This year, we know that a lot of fire departments have sent their people to other states to help, particularly Oregon and Washington, where they're having a terrific time with a dickens of a time, I should say, not a terrific time, with all the fires that they have as well. I do want to say, though, that because we know that the weather pattern is going to be tough through the rest of the into this summer, and the fact that we have these fires burning and it's going to take weeks, I call upon the chiefs of the fire departments in our state to think about bringing those assets back when it's most soon practical for them, because the state of Colorado needs those resources here as well. We want to make sure that we're able to deploy all those resources as effectively and efficiently as possible as we can. So with that, I'm going to turn it over now to the Regional Forester, Troy Hithiker of the United States Forest Service. And I probably butchered that name. I'm sorry, Troy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Troy Hithiker, Regional Forester here in the Rocky Mountain region for the USDA Forest Service. Director Hilge covered a lot of our points and how important coordination is with the state, the counties, and all the responders here. I'd like to talk about 3 things today for you. The first one is where we are in federal response nationally. I'd like to talk about where we are now here locally along the Front Range, and then lastly where we're going to be moving forward, and then I'll hand it off to the incident commander to give you an current update on the fire. Nationally, folks are probably aware we are at planning level 5. That's our highest level of fire response nationwide, and that creates resource draws. We've worked with national coordination to help keep resources here, knowing these weather patterns and the conditions. I'm thankful that we did because of the starts that we've had here. And if it weren't for the coordination with the state and the counties, we wouldn't be where we are today and able to get some good work done here and get the resources up on the hill. Right now we have a local incident management team, a Type 3 team here under the command of Mike Smitty Smith. He'll be up here in just a sec as he'll give you the details on the fire and the current update. I won't talk for very long here other than, again, to thank our cooperators and the partnerships that we have here, relationships that help us be able to respond in these really just challenging conditions. Again, nationally, as you saw last week with all the smoke from Canada, from the Northwest, we have fires, really just exceptional fire activity in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California now that are drawing resources and, again, keeping resources here to prioritize and shift those as needed where we have those demands here along the Front Range is critical for us. So as we move into tomorrow, we're going to have a complex incident management team. What we before had is our Type 1 and Type 2 teams taking over. They're going to start working on that transition tonight. And it's a Southwest team coming in, good incident commander and a strong team. We're lucky to get them, glad that we held them. We got the order in just in time to keep them from getting drawn up to the Northwest. We're really thankful for that. And from here, I'm going to hand it over to Smitty to give you the current incident update. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mike Smith. I hope I don't have to spell it for you. I'm the incident commander for the Alexander fire through tomorrow morning. The nice thing about going at the end of the row is pretty much everything's been said. But I'd like to reiterate the thanks to the governor and the congressman, to Director Hilke, to all of our partners who have really supported us throughout this incident. Currently, just a couple quick updates. We are at 6,781 acres as of about 20 minutes ago, and that acreage is provided by the multi-mission aircraft from the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. So again, thanks for that support. I'm not quite as good as the governor at speaking, so this is a little distracting for me. So currently we have about 250 firefighters on scene. We have both fixed wing and rotorcraft being shared between the three fires. We also have what's called an air attack platform, and that's our eyes in the sky that's constantly doing air control for us, and it just gives us another set of hands up and eyes up in the sky. Our biggest concerns over the next few days are the community of Cedar Park and the potential for the fire to spot over Highway 34. We are doing as much as we can in this limited resource environment to protect those communities, but our number one priority is human life. So we will continue to emphasize that and do what we can to make sure that we don't put anybody in unnecessary harm. The forecast for the next few days is pretty much what you see right now. Hot, dry, and windy. And the uncommon part of this right now is the east wind, which is pushing that fire off the top of Palisade Mountain and towards the community of Cedar Park. So we have folks actively engaged, trying to do what they can, but we know that it's going to be a tough couple days for us. We also, with the assistance of all the aircraft overhead and a lot of people with eyes and binoculars looking over Highway 34 to the south, trying to make sure that if we do have a fire that spots across the river, that we're ready to jump on that. The last thing we want this thing to do is to jump across and start marching in that direction. So we will continue to make all efforts to keep the fire footprint as small as we can. But with the forecast that we have, we will just focus on doing the best that we can. I look forward to taking your questions afterwards, and I'm going to hand it off to Boulder County Sheriff and a good friend, Curtis Johnson.
Thank you all. Good afternoon. I'm Curtis Johnson, Johnsson. I'm the Boulder County Sheriff. I want to give you a quick update on the Stone Canyon fire. We have not seen significant growth in that fire. The last flight over it was about 1,320 acres and not significant growth since then. Waiting for another flight to get a better update. Last night we were able to make significant progress, especially on the south and west sides of the fire. Those are the areas that, should the fire creep over those edges, would encroach on the town of Lyons, which we're trying very hard to protect. Currently, most of the fire activity is to the north and east, and that area runs into more agricultural and less vegetative lands, which is good for us. It also runs into the Rabbit Mountain open space on the east, which is fine with us. I did confirm this morning, we believe we have about 5 structures that we have lost in that fire, and we did have 1 fatality in one of those structures. I'm not prepared to talk about any more information regarding that fatality. We have investigators on the scene right now that are working that and trying to determine exactly what happened, and until I have better information, I have nothing more I can say about it. I do want to emphasize a huge thank you to the Governor's Office, the Department of Public Safety, the Department of Fire Prevention and Control, and Congressman Joe Neguse for all the support that they brought to these fires. You know, on Monday, I spoke with Sheriff Fayan about 11 a.m. when this fire kicked off behind us, and we sent resources to help them, not knowing that just a little over 24 hours later we would have our own fire. And Sheriff Fayan and I communicated on Tuesday right after our fire kicked off, and he was able to help divert resources to our fire, get air support on it quickly, and help us manage it quickly. And that interagency cooperation with the support of the state and the federal government is what is helping us keep these fires in check. And so I'm grateful for that. Our relationship goes way back, and our counties work together very well. With that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Governor Polis for questions and answers.
I also want to acknowledge we have some of our local elected officials here. Commissioner Jody Shattuck-Manali, Larimer County, Commissioner Marta Loacham, Boulder County, Senator Janice Marchman, Representative Judy Amabile, and we were joined by Representative Ron Weinberg visiting the shelter for some of the those who are under evacuation orders earlier today. Thanks again to our firefighters on the front line, over 200 strong, more to come, doing everything we can to protect homes and protect lives. And with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Governor, are you worried at all about how far stretched the resources are getting? Are you worried that we won't have enough to fight 3, maybe 4 fires at one time?
Well, first of all, we're in a much stronger position because Colorado controls the limited fleet we have. If you go back in time to the last fire several years ago, last major fire and fires of the past, we relied entirely on an interstate pool. We are still benefiting. We have 2 scoopers from Wyoming, but the majority of the resources that are being deployed are under Colorado's direct control. If they weren't, it's likely they wouldn't even be here right now. And we are literally able to protect communities every day with the resources that we have. Could we use more resources? Of course. But what the current analysis is always to do is to use the resources we have to the greatest positive impact to protect homes and lives.
Before you go into more specific questions, would you be able to give us a small recap?
En español, sí. Estoy hablando sobre la palabra no es fuegos. ¿Qué es la palabra para fires? Incendios. Estamos hablando de los 2 incendios grandes y ya 3, uno en Jefferson County, uno en Boulder County, cerca de Lyons, y uno en Larimer County, cerca de Loveland. Ya 5 edificios son destruidos y una vida perdido. Estamos luchando contra los incendios con aviones que el Estado dueño, 6 aviones y 2 pequeños aviones más alquilando de Wyoming. Hay más que 200 bomberos cada momento luchando los incendios aquí en el norte de Colorado.
Governor, following up on John's question and something Director Hilton said, what is the strain on resources from resources being in other states right now? Like, how much of an impact is that having?
Yeah, I'll let Chief Hilke address that as well. I want to first of all talk about the fact that we control our own aviation resources is the reason we're able to deploy these resources. Given what was happening in other parts of the country, if this was 3 years ago or 5 years ago, it would likely take days for any aviation resources to reach us, if at all, because of the severity of fires in other parts of the country. We continue to support active fire missions in Oregon and other places with municipal and fire districts here in Colorado, and we are already receiving assistance for these fires. We mentioned the 2 Wyoming scoopers that have already been deployed, and additional ground resources from our neighboring states as well. Director Hilke?
Yeah, the question was about, is it impacting us with other agencies that have sent people out of state? The good news is that we're not severely impacted at the moment. However, because of the national planning level 5 status where, those resources from the country are getting consumed by other states, I do get a little bit worried about our long haul and our ability to staff these fires in a long-term way. So I think my message is to the fire chiefs that have sent staff there, we support that noble mission of helping our partners because our partners help us when we need it. But I also think that as opportunity arises, and with the weather patterns that we're going to have the rest of the summer, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we had some of their resources back in the state as well to help us with the long-term impacts.
Sorry, 1 second. Can you elaborate for us on that process? I know you said the fire chiefs, but they ultimately make that decision to have our Colorado firefighters back. Can you explain that? And can you also elaborate on the ground crews from out of state that are coming? I know we have the 2 tankers and the
Yeah, there's an interagency system nationally that people sign their resources up for. There's not a lot of fire departments in Colorado that have wildland firefighting resources, but those that do put their resources in this interagency system, and when it's needed, then the interagency system can pull them as necessary, and they can send their people to that fire. And so that's what's happened in this case. And again, we benefited from that system greatly in 2020. 2020. And I just want to make sure that I acknowledge them for helping out, by sending people there as well. But as we go through the rest of the summer, like I said, I feel more comfortable if some of those resources were back when they have that opportunity. What was the second part of your question?
you mentioned ground crews are also coming from out of state.
Well, we're trying to get ground crews from out of state. One of the resource that we've gotten from out of state is the 2 Scooper aircraft that have come from Wyoming. But those that is one of the most scarce resources right now is ground crews to get on the ground and build that fire line around the fire. And that's something that we're continuing to, do our best to take a grasp at. But we're competing with other states at the moment.
All right, Fox 31.
Have there been any issues with reverse 911 calls, and how are resources doing in that area versus this been?
Yeah, I haven't been made aware of any issues with reverse 911. The areas under mandatory evacuation have had an extensive door-to-door outreach of every household that's in those areas. Does anybody else have anything on the reverse 911? There are people that don't want to evacuate, and I would really strongly encourage them to take a very serious look at protecting their lives, in some cases their pets' lives, their families' lives, and make the right decision. We never make these evacuation orders lightly. There's several thousand homes under evacuation order now, and other areas where it's recommended. And if people are reluctant to leave, I would really strongly encourage them to take a second look at that and look at what's the price of 2 or 3 nights away from home versus the rest of your life.
Is there anything in the budget, or are you guys looking to the future to increase your aerial arsenal?
Yeah, we have, there's a second fire hawk, right, already ordered. So when's that delivery next year?
It'll be delivered by August of next year.
Yeah. So we are looking to double our Firehawk capacity. We have an additional helicopter. We mentioned 1,000 capacity. So we have an additional Firehawk that will be delivered by next August on order. We also are, exploring some. We talk about the type of aircraft. Are they medium tanker aircraft? We're exploring additional medium tanker aircraft as well. So this is something that really, didn't exist as a state fleet several years ago. And I know a lot of your questions were about the firefighters and ground resources. They are sufficient. Again, looking towards months of managing it, there might be more that are needed. Where we could have used more on day 1 and even day 0 is aviation resources. And so we are on the track to enhance Colorado's airborne resources against fires over the next year.
All right, Colorado Sun, then the Colorado Wind.
Yes.
So, Governor, for the family that just had the victim that died, are we doing anything for them? How are we supporting them? Or what resources are we providing for them?
Well, again, the details haven't been released. There's important matters of family notification first and ongoing investigations. Of course, when the time is right, I look forward to personally reaching out to any survivors as well as seeing what we can do to support any victims of the fire.
Like houses that are just already burned down, where are they going at the current time?
Well, I think, again, we estimate about 5 homes have been destroyed. Again, it could certainly be greater than that at this point, but that is the estimate. And of course, we're going to work directly with the families who lost their home, and just like after the Marshall fires, deal with insurance and what role or gap we can fill. Right now, though, there are thousands of families who are displaced, not knowing if they have a home to return to, and that's really the very important work of the agencies that are represented here, the firefighters on the ground, making sure we can defend subdevelopments and homes to prevent any additional loss of property.
Do we have any additional information on wildlife being affected around the area?
No, we don't have Colorado Parks and Wildlife up here with us. I'm happy to route your question to them. We have been focused on agriculture and pets, and there have been evacuation plans in order for them. Every fire has an impact on wildlife, and I'm sure Colorado Parks and Wildlife will be able to give you a more thoughtful answer on the anticipated impact in these areas.
Governor, if we could talk about the challenges with containment, especially with the Alexander Mountain fire, and despite the significant air resources the fire was supported with yesterday.
So it's important to understand what the aerial resources are here for and the likely trajectory of this fire. This is likely to be a several-week event, even spanning to potentially a month or two, just as the large fires of 2020 were. The purpose of the aerial resources, to better understand this, is not to extinguish the fire immediately, but to prevent it from spreading to populated areas that jeopardize people's lives and people's homes. And thus far, with 0 confirmed homes destroyed in the Alexander Mountain fire, it has been successful, and we need to continue that work. Depending on where the wind goes, immediately being able to respond to use the fire retardant and water to make sure that we prevent the spread to heavily populated areas, and if we can, from it leaping south of 34.
Despite that, though, we saw a significant spread of the fire yesterday and still 0% containment. Can you talk about any of the challenges that we're seeing that are kind of preventing?
Yeah, it's a heavily wooded area. Sure, and I'll go to one of our. It's a heavily wooded area, and I think every model expects additional expansion of the fire before it burns out. Again, our priority on the ground and in the air is to prevent damage to homes and to prevent loss of life, and that's where the resources are directed. If somebody wants to address Alexander Mountain in particular, go ahead.
Thanks for the question. It is challenging every time. So yeah, when we have fires in places like this, it is super helpful, as the governor alluded to have those aviation assets to try and cool the fire so that we can try and get in on the edge and start constructing that fire line, that hard work that's done out on the line. For us right now, because of the hot conditions, the winds, and the steepness of the terrain, there are places that we can't go in right away. So that's where those aviation assets, both fixed wing and rotor wing, will come in and try and keep it in check and maybe herd it into places that we want it to go and keep it away from places that we don't. To begin our real suppression actions, where we're starting to call containment, we need what's called an anchor point. And that's where we can start our actions and have that fire safely, that line be constructed without concern of it coming out around behind us. So last evening we were able to, in the Sylvandale area, establish our first big anchor point. We continue to do what's called point protection. We've got firefighters at numerous homes all over the place. We're also looking at a lot of the infrastructure that's been threatened throughout this. So we do point protection, and then we're also starting to get that containment going. So we will see a little bit of containment going, but we've got some tough days ahead of us before we start to see any sort of significant containment.
Just got an update from Sheriff Johnson on the Stone Canyon Fire current acreage. 1,580 acres is the current acreage of the Stone Canyon Fire. Yes. Next. AP.
Do you have a number of the homes that haven't evacuated relative to the homes under evacuation orders?
No, I mean, I would say that the vast majority, in fact, I would add nearly all homes that under evacuation order people successfully evacuate. There are always a few folks who choose not to.
We've got time for two more. We have Denver 7 and Denver Post.
Governor, in assessing risk from the three fires, the two in northern Colorado, the one down in Washington County, sources telling us right now the greatest risk is the quarry fire from potential damage to buildings and risk for residents. Is that what we're hearing here right now as you have?
You know, every single one of these fires is very close to populated areas. So which fire is at most immediate risk of a jump largely depends on the wind and where it is in each of the locations over the next day or two. But I would really elevate all three of these fires as being very close to areas that have dense human settlement. And so again, it really just depends at any given moment. And that's the dynamic decisions we are making about deploying the aerial resources in real time, based on a real-time assessment of where the risk is greatest and where we can make the biggest difference defending and protecting lives and homes.
Last question, KUNC.
Governor Polis, as these events, if they become long-haul events, what resources can the evacuees expect in the coming days? I talked to folks who have spent a night in a shelter, what a great stress relief that is to have those resources. Do we have enough to continue that? What does that look like over the next few
Yeah, well, we certainly hope and expect that many of the evacuations are short-term. In fact, the status in Lyons now, is it lifted?
Not completely
Most
lifted,
of
but
Lyons.
most of the area in the incorporated part of the town of Lyons is being allowed back in.
So-
The incorporated areas are still evacuated.
So most of the residents of Lyon, for example, had one night away. We want people, we share the value of wanting people to return home as quickly as possible as long as it's safe. And so for the relatively small number of families that might need to spend extended time away, we really look forward to working with them to find solutions that work. Some might find family or friends to stay with. Others might be eligible for different federal or state assistance. I was just at the evacuation center at the church in Loveland working with families that were evacuated. So we look forward to tailoring responses to meet those needs. But we are hopeful that the majority of respondents either are able to return home soon or at least in the next few days.
Governor, finally, I wanted to ask, how confident are you in Colorado's early fire detection system? State lawmakers over the last 5 years have floated the wildfire detecting cameras, but backed off of those, saying that we took satellites, for example. Do these fires give you a reason to want to invest more in early detection?
Can we talk about early detection?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about early detection. Colorado's been leading the way in the nation with regards to early detection with the MMA aircraft and with the fire guard system. The amount of fires that have been detected is I think over 800 now since we've deployed those aircraft and that system. And we've been able to spot fires that you can't hardly even see with the human eye inside of small bushes and direct jurisdictions to, hey, you have these GPS coordinates, there's a fire there. And while it's really difficult sometimes in public safety to measure what you prevent, when you go out and put a fire out before it becomes the gigantic $20 million fire, it's not too hard to measure what you might be preventing. And out of that, you know that there were probably a lot of big fires that were prevented. So I feel really good about where we're going. But I also know that we're looking to the future as well. And we have people from our Center of Excellence in Rifle, Colorado, the Division of Fire Prevention and Control, that are looking at what's next, what's over the horizon with regards to fire detection. And some of it may not even be optical. It may be, heat patterns or whatever through other satellite images and that kind of thing. But while we're doing that, while we're doing what we're doing here now, and many people have copied us now, is we're looking over the horizon to say what's next. And so I feel really good about Colorado's continuous improvement ethic in that regard.
Thank you, everyone.